Right now, across the Northeast and Midwest, it's not just the record-breaking 2026 snow drifts that are dangerous. It's what this freezing cold is doing to your muscles while you're stuck inside. I know many of you are watching this from your living room today because it's simply too icy to step foot outside. For decades, we've been told that as we get older, the single best thing we can do for our health is to go for a walk. And please, do not get me wrong. Walking is wonderful. It's medicine for the heart and it clears the mind. But as the wind howls outside today, there's a silent misconception floating around the medical community that I need to clear up, because believing that walking is enough during these long winter months might actually be putting your independence at risk. Have you noticed that you can still walk a mile, but getting up off the couch feels twice as hard as it did 5 years ago? Or maybe you have the energy to play with the grandkids, but if you slip on a rug, your body doesn't react fast enough to catch you? That's not just getting older, it's a physiological warning sign. There is a specific type of decline that starts around age 50, and modern science now confirms that standard aerobic exercise, like walking or even gentle yoga, does almost nothing to stop it. I've spent years studying how the human body ages, and the data is clear. There is a change happening in your muscle tissue that most doctors don't talk about until after a fall happens. But today, we're changing that. We're going to use this time indoors to flip a biological switch that reverses this process. In the next few minutes, I'm not going to ask you to buy a gym membership or become a bodybuilder. Instead, I'm going to show you a practical, safe, 10-minute protocol designed specifically for your joints and your safety. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to stay winter strong without even leaving your heated living room. If you have a friend or a neighbor who is currently hunkered down waiting for the snow to melt, please share this with them. We need to keep our community mobile and independent through this January freeze. Now, let's look at what is actually happening inside your muscles and how we fix it today.
Now, before that, I'm looking forward to hear from you. Which city are you watching from? It's always so inspiring to see how far our community of health-conscious seniors reaches. Let me know in the comments. Before we get to the solution, we have to understand the problem, and to do that, we need to look at the reality of aging muscles. You might have heard the statistics, and they can be a little alarming, but stick with me because there's a hopeful side to this. Research tells us that starting in our 30s, we lose a small percentage of muscle mass every decade. It's slow at first, maybe 3 to 5%. You probably wouldn't even notice it. But when we hit our 50s and 60s, that number accelerates. We can lose up to 10% of our muscle mass every single decade. That's a massive amount of strength leaving the body. But here's the secret that changes everything. That muscle loss is not random. You're not losing all your muscle fibers equally. Your body is actually biased. To understand this, imagine you have two different types of cars in your garage. On the left, you have a sensible, fuel-efficient hybrid. It can drive for hours on a single tank of gas. It's reliable, it goes the distance, but it doesn't have a lot of pickup. On the right side of the garage, you have a high-performance drag racer. It burns fuel quickly, it gets tired fast, but when you need to go from 0 to 60 in a split second, that drag racer is the only machine for the job. Your muscles work exactly the same way. We have what are called slow twitch fibers. Those are your hybrids. They're great for walking, standing, and endurance. Then we have the fast twitch fibers, your drag racers. These are responsible for power, speed, and catching you when you fall. Here's the critical part. As we age, we don't lose the hybrid cars. We keep our slow twitch fibers for a very long time. That's why you can still take a long walk in your 70s. The 10% of muscle you're losing is almost exclusively the drag racers. You're losing the fast twitch fibers because in modern life, we simply stop using them. When was the last time you had to sprint? When was the last time you had to jump? When was the last time you lifted something so heavy you could only do it 4 times? If you're like most people, it's been decades, and the body operates on a ruthless use it or lose it principle. Because we stop demanding power from our bodies, our nervous system decides those expensive, high-energy, fast-twitch fibers are unnecessary, and it lets them fade away. This is why we see seniors who can walk around the grocery store just fine, but can't lift a suitcase into the overhead bin, or why someone might have the endurance to garden all day, but lacks the strength to climb a high step. Now, you might be thinking, I don't need to be a sprinter, so why does this matter? And that's a fair question, but this is where the conversation shifts from fitness to survival. The loss of fast twitch fibers is the #1 risk factor for falls.
Think about the mechanics of a fall. Usually, it happens because you catch your toe on a curb or slip on a wet patch of pavement. In that split second, your brain sends an emergency signal to your leg to shoot out and plant itself firmly to stop your momentum. That motion requires velocity. It requires force. It requires the drag racer. If you have let those fast twitch fibers atrophy, your brain sends the signal, but the muscles simply cannot contract fast enough to stabilize you. That is when a stumble turns into a fracture. This is why preserving these fibers isn't about vanity or having big muscles. It's about preserving your right to live independently in your own home. So how do we fix this? How do we wake up these dormant fibers without hurting ourselves? This brings us to a concept that often scares people: resistance training, and more specifically, lifting heavier loads. Now, please do not click away. When I say heavy, I do not mean you need to squat 200 pounds or look like a powerlifter. In fact, if you have arthritis or back issues, the idea of heavy lifting probably sounds like a terrible idea. But we need to redefine what heavy means for you. In the world of physiology, heavy is not a number on a dumbbell. Heavy is a feeling. It's a signal to the brain. Let me explain how your brain recruits muscle, because this is fascinating. It follows something called the size principle. When you go to lift something light, like a coffee cup, your brain is smart. It wants to conserve energy, so it only recruits the small, low-energy, slow-twitch fibers. It leaves the big, powerful, fast-twitch fibers asleep because it doesn't need them. If you lift something slightly heavier, like a bag of groceries, the brain calls on a few more soldiers, but mostly still the slow-twitch ones. To wake up the fast-twitch fibers, those ones we are desperate to save, you have to give the brain a reason to call them into action. You have to present the body with a challenge that the slow-twitch fibers cannot handle alone. This happens in 2 ways. One is speed, which we'll talk about in a moment. The other is fatigue. If you lift a weight that is challenging enough that you can only do it for, say, 6 or 8 repetitions before your muscles start to shake and you feel like you just can't do another one, you have forced your brain to open the emergency reserve. It has no choice but to activate the fast twitch fibers to help you finish the task. This is the magic zone. You don't need a 50-pound dumbbell to get there. If you're starting out, heavy might be a resistance band that feels tight. It might be a soup can if you're recovering from an injury. The weight doesn't matter. The effort matters. If you stop every set when it still feels easy, you're only training the slow twitch fibers you already have. You're polishing the hybrid car while the drag racer rusts in the corner. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, I have joint pain, or I'm afraid of hurting my back. These are valid concerns. The last thing we want to do is cause an injury while trying to prevent one. That's why the modern approach to senior fitness isn't about throwing weights around. It's about controlled intensity. In fact, research suggests that for older adults, the speed of the movement might be even more important than the weight itself. This leads us to the practical part of our discussion. How do we build a routine that's safe, effective, and targets these specific aging mechanisms? We're going to break this down into a simple conceptual protocol. You should always consult with your doctor before starting a new regimen, especially if you have a history of heart issues or joint injuries, but generally speaking, this approach is designed for safety. The first pillar of our protocol is what I call the power-up.
If you look at how most seniors exercise, they move slowly. They walk slowly, they sit slowly, they lift light weights slowly. Slow movement is safe, but it doesn't stimulate power. Remember, power is the ability to generate force quickly. You can train this safely using a chair. Imagine you're sitting in a sturdy dining chair. The standard way to stand up is to rock forward, maybe use your hands on your knees, and slowly straighten up. To turn this into a fast twitch exercise, we change the intent. I want you to sit in that chair, engage your core, and then stand up as quickly and explosively as you safely can. Boom, you're up. Then, and this is crucial, you sit back down very, very slowly. Take 3 or 4 seconds to lower yourself. What just happened there? When you exploded up, you forced your brain to fire those fast twitch neurons. You mimicked the action of catching a fall. When you sat down slowly, you built strength and control in the tendons and joints. You don't need weights for this. Your body weight is enough. If you did 3 sets of 8 explosive stand-ups twice a week, you would do more for your fast twitch fibers than walking 5 miles would. It's simple, but it's potent. Now, let's talk about the upper body. We need that same stimulus. You can apply the same logic. If you're using a resistance band to do a row or a chest press, try moving the band quickly on the hard part of the movement, pulling it back fast, and then letting it return slowly. That contrast between the fast explosion and the slow return is exactly what an aging muscle needs. But we have to address the heavy component again, because there's a specific benefit to resistance training that goes beyond just muscle fibers. We have to talk about your bones. Osteoporosis and osteopenia are silent epidemics. Just like muscles, bones are living tissue. They react to stress. If you put a heavy load through a bone, the bone realizes it needs to get stronger to handle that load, and it lays down more density. Walking provides a little bit of this, but not enough to truly reverse bone loss. Loading the skeletal system, putting weight on the chassis, is essential. And this is where we can get creative if you're gym shy. You don't need a barbell on your back. Carrying heavy things is one of the most functional ways to train. Think about the farmer's carry. You pick up 2 heavy objects, maybe 2-gallon jugs of water or 2 dumbbells if you have them, and you simply walk with perfect posture for 30 seconds. This compresses the body safely. It strengthens the grip, which is strongly linked to longevity. It strengthens the shoulders, and it strengthens the hips. And because you're carrying a heavy load, you're tapping into those higher threshold muscle units. I want to pause here for a second and check in. Does this make sense to you? We're moving away from the idea that exercise simply means burning calories or getting a sweat. We're moving toward exercise as a signal. We're signaling the body to stay young, to stay fast, and to stay durable. If this is resonating with you and you're starting to realize that maybe your current routine has a few gaps, that's a good thing. Awareness is the first step. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the physiology of aging, consider subscribing to the channel because we have so much more to cover on this topic. Now, there's another piece of this puzzle that we cannot ignore, and that is recovery. You might be motivated to jump up right now and start doing power drills, but we have to respect the biology of the older body. When you train fast twitch fibers, you're taxing your central nervous system more than when you walk. You might not feel out of breath, but your nervous system takes a hit. That's why you should not do this every day. The ideal frequency for this kind of heavy or power work is 2 to 3 times a week. That's it. In between those days, you should be walking, stretching, doing your yoga, and staying active. But you need to give those high-performance fibers 48 hours to rebuild. If you train them every day, you'll just burn them out and you increase the risk of injury. Let's talk about nutrition for a moment, because you cannot build muscle out of thin air. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at processing protein. This is a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. It basically means that a 60-year-old needs more protein than a 20-year-old just to get the same muscle-building effect. If you start this routine, doing your chair power-ups, lifting heavier loads, carrying your groceries with purpose, but you're only eating toast and coffee for breakfast and a salad for lunch, you're going to run into a wall. You need building blocks. You don't need to drink processed shakes if you don't want to, but you do need to be conscious of getting high-quality protein at every meal. Eggs, lean meats, yogurt, beans, lentils. Think of protein as the bricks and the heavy lifting as the construction workers. You need both to build the house. And speaking of how our bodies process fuel, this is a great time to mention that metabolic health plays a huge role here. How your body handles blood sugar impacts your energy levels for these workouts. If your blood sugar is crashing, you're not going to have the explosive energy needed to train your fast-twitch fibers. Understanding your own biology is key. Some people find that monitoring how different foods affect their energy helps them optimize their strength training. It's not just about calories, it's about having the stable fuel to perform. Tools like continuous glucose monitors can be fascinating for this, showing you exactly how that bowl of oatmeal affects your personal system compared to eggs. When you have steady energy, you have better workouts. When you have better workouts, you keep your independence. It's all connected.